Bretto, for years our Sydney-based Wellness Couch fans have been saying, when are you coming to Sydney?
Oh, they've been banging the door down, MP. Well, Sydney Siders will be in your neck of the woods on Saturday, June the 2nd.
We're going out of the CBD, we're heading straight down the highway to the regions of the Illawarra and the beautiful town of Kiama for our third and final Wellness Base Camp of the year.
Join Fuad Kassab from Quirky Cooking to talk all about food, naturopath, gut guru and female health extraordinaire Helen Patteran.
Stress is a hot topic with Dr. Maria Zushman, and you and I, Bretto, are talking about succeeding at life and love and work at the same time as succeeding in health, because there is no wellness in a life that doesn't feel good.
Zazen Alkaline Water presents the Wellness Base Camp. One full day of inspiration and education on Saturday, June 2 from 10 till 5.
There's over $1,000 in door prizes, a raft of world-class local exhibitors, and a room full of people just like you.
Bring a buddy and get 2 tickets for the price of 1 before they're all gone.
All details and tickets at thewellnessbasecamp.com.
That's thewellnessbasecamp.com.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cindy O'Meara, Karen Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Cindy O'Meara, and over the next 3 weeks, it's me interviewing 6 amazing people. Now, you know that I am the founder of Changing Habits, and I'm also the founder of the Functional Nutrition Academy. And every year we do, it's an online course, but every year we do 2 things where our students, as well as the public, doesn't have to be students, and our graduates can come and spend time together. We do one in February at the Sunshine Coast, where we discuss how can we unpack the knowledge that we've learned over the 12 months of the Functional Nutrition Academy courses, including the Fundamentals of Nutrition, as well as the Applied Nutrition course. So the second time that we meet is at the last weekend in July, and this year, 2018, it's the 28th and 29th of July in Brisbane. And we always have a summit. It's called the Functional Nutrition Academy Summit. And we always have a summit that gives more information than what's on the course. But you have the grounding with the course, but then we have amazing speakers come. And this is our 3rd year that we have run this. And every year I handpick the speakers because there's just so many people that I listen to and read information from and read their articles, their blogs. And I handpick the speakers almost 12 months before the summit arrives. So I'm very excited to let you know that we have 6 amazing speakers this year. We have Dr. Rodney Ford, who is a pediatrician as well as a gastroenterologist from New Zealand, and he was in my movie What's with Wheat. So you'll be hearing from him today, as well as Dr. Joanne Messenger. She is a chiropractor, but she's also written many books on hormones, and she's a specialist in hormones as well as getting out of your way in order to do the things that you need to do. We have Dr. Margie Smith, the author of Gene Genius, as well as the founder of Smart DNA. So she'll be speaking, of course, on genes and DNA. You're going to love her. We have Professor Cliff Hawkins. Now, he's an amazing man. He just wanted to help his family. And he figured out that there are enzymes in plants that would help with digestion. So he's going to talk about the gut, enzymes, and digestion. We also have Melanie Thompson. Now, Melanie is a naturopath, but she works for Cultured Wellness, which we've interviewed Kirsty Worth before, who's the founder of Cultured Wellness. But Melanie is the herb specialist, so she'll be speaking on herbs and the amazing things that they do in the body, medicinally as well as like nutrition-wise, because they are a food. And last but not least is our beautiful Karen Smith. She will be speaking on As You Know mindset. She can convince anybody to do anything, I swear. She's amazing, as you know, and if you're a regular listener, you'll know what she's like. So I asked Karen last year in 2017 if she'd like to do the Functional Nutrition Academy, but her father got very sick, and she, at the last minute, had to go to her father in Sydney. So at the last minute, I asked my beautiful Kim Morrison, our beautiful Up for a Chat Kim Morrison, to speak for us. And I tell you, she was the highlight, absolute highlight last year. And I think you could ask the students. She was just amazing. So I decided that I would get Karen this year, and we'll get Kim back next year in 2019, because like Kim's one of those people that inspire you to just make those changes. She's motivational, but more so she inspires in spirit, helps you get your reason for doing it, your why, as does Karen Smith. So over the next 3 weeks, I will be interviewing these amazing speakers. So each week you will have 2 speakers. So this week I've interviewed Dr. Rodney Ford, our gastroenterologist and pediatrician, as well as Dr. Joanne Messenger, our hormone expert. Enjoy, and I'll talk to you at the end of Up for a Chat. Welcome to the speaker introduction for the Nutrition Summit of 2018. The lineup of speakers is spectacular. They will give you information that will help you along your road to success with nutrition. I've handpicked them all myself, and they give you the latest in science and research in their field. And right now, I have Dr. Rodney Ford, who was one of the stars of my documentary, What's with Wheat. And so I'm very excited that he is actually coming to our summit to speak. So welcome, Rodney.
Thank you.
Let's talk about why you do what you do, because I know you've been doing this a long time. You've been in practice as a medical doctor. You do gastroenterology, you do pediatrics, and I know you've been doing it a long time and against the grain per se. So tell me.
That's right. I see children who are sick, and children come to see me because they've got symptoms, and the parents want their children to feel better again. And it's very distressing for the parents for their children to be moaning and saying, "Mummy, I've got a sore tummy," or having an itchy rash and feeling uncomfortable, scratching all night and not being able to get to sleep. And then in the morning, maybe feeling sick and vomiting up stuff and not feeling good and being told that they're just anxious children. And my idea has been that these children who have symptoms, there must be something causing them the problem, and what is it? Now, I've been taught basically if you've got symptoms, then you've got to make a diagnosis, and once you've made a diagnosis, you've got to treat it. And the usual treatment, of course, in the medical fraternity is medication. And the symptoms get turned into a diagnosis. So you've got an itchy rash that's turned into a diagnosis of eczema. And then if you've got eczema, then you need to treat it with a medication on the outside. And if it doesn't get better, then you change the creams. And if you don't get better, you change your doctor. And then the doctor will prescribe more creams. And the circle goes on. And what I've found, like you and many others, is that most illnesses are the root cause is food. And if you don't eat the right food, you eat the wrong food, if you react to food, then you're going to get the symptoms. And by looking at the mechanism of the illness and by switching the diet, eliminating or adding or stopping nutritional deficiencies, those sort of things, then the symptoms magically go away and they don't need medication. And the diagnosis isn't that important because the food reactions can occur in any organ of the body. So some people are susceptible to headaches and migraines, other people to itchy skin, other people to sore tummies, to gastric reflux, to constipation, to diarrhea, and some people to joint aches and pains. And then, of course, as children grow into adults, they begin to get the autoimmune diseases. So the actual target organ of the food problem, reaction, deficiency, intolerance, varies, but the treatment is basically the same: get people eating properly. So I recognised that a long time ago, but it still seems to be a controversial thing to do, to make sure that people are eating properly.
And now, how long have you been in the field?
Well, I've graduated in 1972, so that's last century.
It sounds like a long time ago, doesn't it?
And I did pediatrics at Christchurch. And what I found, I was a registrar working under the supervision of my senior medical officers, consultants, and I saw a lot of children with vomiting and eczema, and the parents were saying that they thought that milk was making these children sick. And I was listening to that, and after a while I said to my senior medical officer, the Professor Shannon at the time, I said, Prof, I think this child's got milk allergy. And looked down his nose at me and thought, she said, that's rubbish. People don't get allergic to foods, and that's not the problem. This child's got eczema or vomiting or something. And so I said, well, I don't believe you, Prof. This child has got milk allergy. And he said, well, prove it then. If you can prove it to me, then I'll believe you. So the next step was that I got a research grant, and I began to research food allergy in children. And I did that for 2 years, and I did what's called double-blind studies, challenging the children with milk and egg was the ones I was looking at. I was looking at children with vomiting and eczema, doing skin prick tests on these children. And I got a whole lot of children, 120 about, and showed by double-blind challenge that basically they all got sick. And then the prof in the end said, well, I'll refer these children to you, Rodney. And he used to send me letters saying, Dear Rodney, you might believe that this child's got a food allergy. Would you please see? He never in his life ever admitted that food allergy or food intolerance actually existed.
Now, that was the 70s. Fast forward now, quite a few decades later, and are you seeing more and more children getting sicker and sicker? Do you see that, or do you think we're just getting better at diagnosis?
Well, there's very good evidence to show that the food allergies increased twofold, fourfold, and some people say tenfold, and that there's the recognition that children are reacting to foods, and also the immediate IgE reactions, which are the classical food allergy, that's been increasing at least fourfold over the last 20 years. But still, there's a great reluctance of medical practitioners to agree to this. After doing food allergy or diagnosing children with food allergy, I ran the food allergy clinic and gastroenterology clinic at the Christchurch Hospital as associate professor. And I began looking at wheat allergy, and a lot of the mothers were saying that their children were reacting to wheat, but they had negative skin tests, and I couldn't show that these children had a wheat allergy. And I accepted what the mothers said. They said, my child's sick with wheat, and when I take wheat out of their diet, they get better. But I was trained to look for a condition called celiac disease. That's a condition that most people have heard about now, where gluten, one of the proteins in wheat, damages the bowel. And the bowel doesn't work as well, and you get what's called malabsorption. You get runny poos usually, but sometimes constipation. You don't grow as well, and you have a sore tummy, reflux, a whole lot of symptoms. But the clincher of the diagnosis is what was called, and still is, called a small bowel biopsy, where an endoscope, that's a tube that goes into the mouth while you're asleep, goes down into the stomach and then out of the stomach into the small bowel. A little bit of tissue is taken and that's looked at. And if that tissue has the hallmarks of celiac disease, which is a damaged bowel, then you can diagnose this condition as celiac disease. And that was a diagnostic criteria made in the 1970s. And it really hasn't changed a lot. It has shifted a bit, and there are good blood tests now. But because this was the actual formal diagnosis, it became a mantra that if you didn't have damage in your bowel, then you couldn't be reacting to gluten, which was completely wrong grammar, because it was the other way around, that if you had bowel damage, then you were reacting to gluten, but it didn't. The converse is not true. Anyway, it became a sort of mantra that gluten could only and specifically cause celiac disease. And I've just been reviewing a child, and I will present this child to you in July. Her name's Elizabeth, and I've just been looking at her file, and she was the very first person that I diagnosed as gluten intolerant, and that was in September 1990. So that's nearly 30 years ago. And she was a girl who had 3 biopsies, and they were all negative. And after 2 years of umming and ahhing and talking to my colleagues, I said, look, this child should go on a gluten-free diet and see if she got better. And she did. She got better within a couple of weeks. And from then on, I thought, I wonder how many other children in my clinic are suffering from gluten, and I have been blind to it. And so more and more, I began to experiment. I don't know whether that's the right word, probably is, with the parents in mind and the children happy to do this, to put them on a gluten-free diet. That was difficult in those days. How long ago are we talking about? 25 years ago, putting people on a gluten-free diet. No one had ever heard of gluten, and the shops hadn't heard of gluten. There were no gluten-free products. There was a few bad products of gluten-free flour. So it was a big effort and socially isolating for the children to be on a gluten-free diet. But they got better, and the parents stuck with the gluten-free diet. And I began to get into trouble because I was a professor teaching students that you could react to gluten without having celiac disease, which was a sort of going through I don't know what the glass ceiling or whatever that is. It was forbidden territory. And I got reprimanded, but I still kept on going. And eventually had seen hundreds, maybe thousands of children who were gluten intolerant. And I was given a nickname called Dr. Gluten, and people thought that the only thing I did in my clinic was to switch children onto a gluten-free diet, which was not correct. But that was the change that made the biggest difference to those children. And I've got a letter here I found for you, Cindy.
I look forward to it.
I don't know where I put it. Okay, I have to get it later. But basically, it's from the clinical head of pediatrics who invited me to speak on gluten intolerance. And he said that the senior medical officers, that's him and his colleagues, don't agree with your viewpoint and won't necessarily agree with what you have to say, but we'd be interested to hear your evidence. So I presented a whole lot of children to them. This is in September 2006, so we're talking 12 years ago. Anyway, I presented the data, an hour of information. Some of the parents with their children came into the clinic and explained their symptoms, and I showed all this thing. And at the very end of it, they said, well, we don't believe you, basically. And so,
and then it wasn't until 2012, I think it was 2012, that Alessio Fasano came up with the term non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which is basically what you had discovered in 1990. So, you're 22 years ahead of what the science as per se was doing. But sometimes I think we forget to look at the, N equals 1, but you were like N equals 1,000 in research. So do you want to address that? Why do we want this evidence-based, double-blind, placebo studies when in clinic for 22 years you were seeing amazing results and so were the parents?
Well, the problem is testing.
Yes.
There is no blood test for gluten sensitivity, really. There are a lot of tests that can give you a heads up and suggesting, hey, this child could have a problem. Many of the tests, and the tests that I used for a long time until it was abandoned basically by the labs in Australia and New Zealand, and I think in the UK too, was what's called native anti-gliadin antibody. This is a antibody produced by the body against gluten. And that was the first test used to diagnose celiac disease, but it wasn't found to be particularly accurate. Only 80% of the, no, probably less than that, probably 50% of the people who had a high gliadin antibody had celiac markers. And in the end, it was thought not to be very accurate. And the only focus was celiac disease, and it still is really in gastroenterology fields. And so this test, because it hasn't been 90%, 100% accurate, has been abandoned because of financial constraints. And this test, which is, I found, quite useful for giving some evidence of gluten sensitivity, has been abandoned because the pathologists, again, don't believe in gluten intolerance. The medics nowadays demand a blood test for a disease. So if a disease doesn't have a blood test, then it doesn't exist. I've got a note here. The Congress, the RACP Congress, that's the Royal Australasian College of Physicians, it's being held in May the 14th. So that's in another 3 weeks. And one of their main topics is, I'll say this slowly, medically unexplained symptoms.
Wow.
Medically unexplained symptoms is one of the highlighted keynotes. And I don't know what they're going to talk about. And I don't know, just because the medics can't explain the symptoms doesn't mean that they're in someone's head or they're functional. There's a huge movement called the Rome Criteria movement. Do you aware of that? There's a group of, especially gastroenterologists, but other people, now some neurologists, talk about functional gastroenterological symptoms. That means the irritable bowel symptoms, basically diarrhea, constipation, sore tummy, fatigue, without really any organic disease. No tests can be shown that this is the problem. It has been shown that quite a substantial group of these people with unexplained tummy symptoms actually respond to a gluten-free diet, and many of them respond to when you remove other things from their diet too, including the it's called the FODMAP diet. You'd be well aware of that, and that's when various fibers that in foods can upset the gut, particularly in relationship to the microbiome, the bacteria in the gut. And there's been talk about this is functional because there isn't any diagnostic test, there isn't a drug that you can give, and that it can be attributed to the neurological tree, and that not necessarily imagining these things happening, but it's a very frustrating thing in medicine, because if you've got these unexplained symptoms without a test, then you've got to make up a name for it, and the name is usually related to the symptoms. So they call it this functional IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and it doesn't really mean anything. And what happens is that many, many people get diagnosed with this condition, irritable bowel syndrome, and then they've got a diagnosis, and that's the end of it. Oh, well, I've got irritable bowel. That's my problem, and I just have to find out where all the toilets are in the supermarket, and I can't go out because of my tummy pain. I've got to be careful what I eat, and I just have to live with this. But so as soon as you give a diagnosis, that's the end of the investigation. And also, just rabbiting on a bit here, but the investigations cost money. Drugs cost money. And so what's happening in New Zealand, and I'm sure in Australia, is that the GPs are doing not as many tests as they perhaps could do because they are constrained by the finances. And certainly in New Zealand, the GP practices have a budget for their tests, and they look after their budget quite carefully, and therefore they're reluctant to do tests unless they feel they're absolutely necessary. Now, it depends on your testing for. I see a lot of people who have not been tested for celiac disease, and it hasn't even occurred to them because they're waiting for someone to get a lot sicker. And my job as a pediatrician is to keep children well, and also, if you've got a child who's sick, who's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and you solve their problem nutritionally, and then they live a healthy, happy life from then on, you save them a lifetime of symptoms. And I was thinking today, as this interview was coming up about alcoholics, because alcoholics, they were drinking beer basically a long time ago, just beer. And there's some nutrition in beer, but not a lot. And one of the main problems of that group of gentlemen were that they were having nutritional deficiencies of thiamine, and thiamine deficiency led to neurological problems, and they needed treatment. And so the idea, and it's still with us now in various forms, was to actually supplement the bread, because they knew that alcoholics ate bread and they put thiamine in bread. And so the idea of that was to help mitigate the poor diet. And from then on, we've had bread has been enriched with various other things, various vitamins, minerals. And this has been a creep. Slowly more nutritional deficiencies have been managed by giving people bread with the deficient minerals included, which is crazy, because instead of trying to teach people to eat properly. And this has led to some people criticizing a gluten-free diet, because they're saying, well, the gluten-free bread is no good because it's not nutrient-enriched. But the nutrient-enriched bread without gluten, the normal gluten, has only been neutrally enriched because the people's diets are terrible. So we've got this sort of roundabout. So where were we? Well, I'm 20 years on, I'm still seeing the same problems, seeing children with multiple food allergy, undiagnosed, untested, children with gluten intolerance, unrecognized, parents who are distressed with their children, and being fobbed off isn't the word, but it's when I see a child in my clinic, it takes me 3/4 of an hour to do a full consultation, and I still haven't got to the bottom of the problem, really. Whilst if you go to your general practitioner, you're going to be there for 10 minutes, and that's not long enough even to take a nutritional history, let alone examine the person, do the heights and weights, and get some idea of what mechanics are going on in that child. So I can understand that the general practitioner is time poor, and they just can't get to the bottom of the problem. But they're unwilling to refer. A lot of general practitioners are unwilling to refer. About a third. I did a study a long time ago looking at this, and that some general practitioners refer a lot, some hardly at all. And the most of the patients that I see are self-referral because they just won't get referred to me.
And that's what's happening. Yeah. So look, I know that you have an unbelievable wealth of knowledge. We could talk for hours, but what I wanted to do is I just wanted to give the people who are coming to the summit a hint as to your breadth of knowledge, what you will be talking about, and then a lot of sick children out there. So we will look forward to you making your way to Australia and speaking to us at the summit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I've got some surprises, and I've got some eye-opening ideas and some different concepts that might make understanding food allergy and food intolerance a lot easier. The last little throwaway thing is that still I am amazed in the year 2018 is that everybody, other than probably you and me and the conference people, don't know the difference between cow's milk allergy and lactose intolerance. It's the same. Lactose intolerance is used as a broad brush thing for anything to do with milk. And it just shows the lack of information or lack of knowledge that the difference between lactose and protein and the symptoms, if you can't that's base one. If you can't get to base one, you're going to have a problem with all other food-related things because you've got to know what's in your food.
Well, we look forward to it. And so it's only a couple of months away, so we're looking forward to it, Rodney, and safe travels to get to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Bye.
Welcome to the speaker introduction for the Nutrition Summit of 2018. There's a wonderful lineup of speakers to give you more information on top of what you're already learning. They're handpicked by me, and they're giving you the latest in science and research in their particular field. And today I have Dr. Joanne Messenger with me. Joanne and I have known each other for a long time. We won't tell them the decades that we've known each other, but we've known each other a long time. And I want to welcome you, Joanne.
Thank you, Cindy.
Now, my first question, it's a question I'm asking all the teachers, because I think when we get to a place where we've written books, and if people are watching the video, they'll see that Joanne has written some books. If we've written books, then we've got a tale to tell, and there's a reason why we do what we do. So why are you doing what you're doing now, which I know is different to what you were doing, years ago when we first met?
I guess it's been a natural progression. It's no secret the world has changed. We're bombarded now with digital media, having to look fantastic. We know everything that everybody's doing day to day, from our friends to the Kardashians to war zones across the world. It's like we're just continuously bombarded with so much information. And I'm all about being really practical. Which information should we listen to? What's relevant to us in our day-to-day environment? How can we make our lives better, our families' lives better, the people that we work with better? How can we improve our health, our wealth, our relationships so that we can help each other in community and grow from there, rather than get bogged down in the he said, she said, oh my God, did you see what they did yesterday? It's like I'm really practical, and I really want the people to be able to be the best version of themselves without turning their life upside down, without having to spend a whole bunch of money they don't have, without having to be fearful of speaking their truth and being criticised or judged or whatever for being who they are.
I love that. And you're right, we are bombarded. And I think what the Functional Nutrition Academy does is it gives them a philosophy, the philosophy of vitalism, which is, you know very well, and an historical perspective. And by giving them that, then they can pick and choose what they look for in the nutrition world, because we are bombarded all the time with fake news about nutrition. And like nutrition, like the dietary guidelines, they're not even real. Like, they're not even science-based. And you're seeing it more and more, and you're wondering why the Dietetics Association of Australia is not changing their mantra of, margarine, breakfast cereals, grains. They're not changing it with the times. So I love that, number one, the changing of the times is happening, and number two, the bombardment. So let's go back to where you started, your health career. Can we talk about that?
Yes. It starts even before my health career. I'm the youngest of 7 children, all of us girls except for 6 boys. And so if that was a bit hard to work out, I've got 6 older brothers. And my mother was a nurse. And one day, the mantra in our house was, don't run in the house. Go outside and play. There's not enough space in the house for 9 people outside. And one day, one of my brothers was charging through the house with another brother hot on his heels, and he ran smack into a door and hit his head. And from that point on, his health deteriorated. He got sicker and sicker and sicker, and my mum, being a nurse, took him to the doctor and to another doctor and Royal Perth Hospital, etc., etc. And it just ended up where he was finally diagnosed as having scleroderma, CREST. And pardon me?
He had CREST.
He had CREST. And he was filled full of cortisone and was basically a teaching person for the students for the medical students at the hospital. They would come to see, what this looked like. And this is back in the early 60s. So this is way before so much information that we've got now. And one of my mum's friends, one of my parents' friends, suggested that they take Chris to a chiropractor. And chiropractic back in the 60s was almost unheard of. There was no chiropractor in our town. It was 2 hours to the nearest chiropractor. But when you're told that your child is going to die, then you start to look at things that you might not otherwise look at before. You take the risk of stepping outside the medical model to do whatever you possibly can to help your child. So my parents, lo and behold, took Chris to a chiropractor, and he didn't die. He got well. He became the champion swimmer of his school, the captain of his sports team, and went on for years and years and years. Thanks very much. So it was no surprise that myself and one of my brothers ended up at chiropractic college. And I had I was blessed with my chiropractic teachers. There was a large input of Americans who are, there's no tall poppy syndrome amongst Americans. It's just do the best you can in any way you possibly can. And it was a really grounded information platform for natural health care, that the body can heal itself if it's just given the right conditions, if it's given the right food, the right air, the right thoughts, the right emotions, the right water. And so I blossomed into chiropractic practice thinking this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. However, little backstory in there is when I was 12, I was a gymnast. So I was in the backyard one day on the trampoline doing back salt after back salt after back salt, just going round and round in circles. And in the middle of the air, I spontaneously decided I'd do 2 back salts. Rather than just one after the other, I'd do 2. Having no experience of this, no awareness of this, and landed on the frame of the trampoline and fractured my pelvis. And so here again, this was in the 70s. So you still didn't go to doctors and things like you do now. It just wasn't available. It was just toughen up, girl, on you go. But within a year, my period stopped. I gained weight. I went from just being a normal functioning country girl and had my appendix removed. It was like my whole health just plummeted instantly. And let's go forward again now to when I'm at chiropractic college. I was visiting a house that was owned by a chiropractor, and he would come down on the weekends and adjust all the students for free. Thank you, Bill. And Bill McPherson.
Bill McPherson.
And so Bill McPherson adjusted me, and my period came back. So I had virtually not had a period for 5 years. Incredibly unhealthy situation. I was grumpy all the time. And fortunately, I was blessed to have a good brain. I was blessed to be academically intelligent. So I could override most things just by the will of thoughts. But when Bill adjusted me and realigned the base of my spine and my pelvis, my period came back. All of a sudden, I started to feel better when I'd forgotten that I wasn't feeling good anymore. Feeling grumpy, it was the norm for the last 5 years. I'd forgotten what it was like to feel good. And so from there, I sailed through chiropractic college. I loved it. I loved the science. I loved the philosophy. I loved the people, and went into practice in Warrnambool in Victoria. And for all intents and purposes, had a normal practice. Excuse me. Loved the patients, went to work day to day. And then one day a lady came in who was an old school clairvoyant. She could see auras. And so she would say unusual things to me when I was working. This line of energy is lining up, and this is happening and this is happening. I had no awareness whatsoever as to what she was talking about. And it didn't take long to work out that she knew what she was talking about, even if I didn't. So as our group of chiropractors, we'd get together with her every Friday night, and we'd learn a bit more about energy healing. And so I guess like acupuncture, the meridians through the body, this was all of the energy work around the body. And it was amazing. And I would do it discreetly. I would go and work on my patients, my chiropractic patients, while they were face down so they couldn't see what I was doing. So I didn't, I could just look professional still. And they would come back the next visit and go, I haven't had a migraine since blah, blah, blah. what did you do that was different? And it was like, oh, my God, okay, I have to come clean now. And so I just started working more energetically as well as chiropractically with people. And it just sort of grew from there. But I became, you know how when you're doing something that you're passionate about, you're on the edge. There's people that love what you do, and there's people that don't want you to change. There's people that want you to be the same old you that you've always been. And the problem that I found was that once I was out of that box, once I knew that, hey, there's more, then I couldn't fit back in the box anymore. It's kind of like once you know margarine is hideous, you just can't get back in the margarine box anymore. You have to go to the butter and the olive oil and the coconut oil. You don't fit that mould. Mm-hmm. And it's not right that you should. You know, you've got to be true to yourself. And so years went by where I guess I was having to be a pioneer in my own world. And one of the drawbacks of this is when you haven't got any mentors, when there's no one doing what you're doing, then you can't really role model anybody. You have to find out your own way by trial and error. And there's blessings in this, because when you don't have to follow anybody else's tracks, you can totally reinvent yourself any which way you can. So I have a freedom now that I didn't used to have. I used to have to fit within, as a child, the medical rules as mum as a nurse, then the chiropractic rules as a chiropractor, then the energy healing rules as to the energy healing people. And now it's like, put it all together. You know, it's like none of us have got to where we are today without learning something. And we don't have to throw out everything that we learnt unless it was silly and not useful. Throw that stuff out. It's just put everything together that you already know in a way that suits you and your lifestyle now. So now I write books, I make video blogs. You can find them on my website. I've gone from being a person who, as the seventh child, you don't get heard. And certainly in the 60s, no one gets heard. Everyone just wants peace and quiet. And in the 60s, a girl doesn't get heard. So I've gone from not speaking up to possibly speaking up too much to, okay, where do I speak up? Where do I be quiet? And the great thing now with technology is you can make videos, you can do Facebook Lives, you can do interviews like this, as much as you like, and people can just simply watch it or not. So it's like people can sense it for themselves what they take into their brain. They just need to, have that scroll by option and take it rather than allow things into their minds that aren't appropriate for them, and to tune in to the interviews, to tune into the videos, the podcasts or whatever that are right for them, that are in alignment with who they are now and where they're going to go.
I love what you're saying. So you're practicing as a chiropractor now, or energy work? I know you're writing books, but what else are you doing?
I've actually retired from seeing patients for 1 year now, so March the 6th last year. So after 35 years of seeing patients day after day after day, I decided to dedicate where I am now to sharing my information rather than doing one-to-one all the time. And not that there's anything wrong with one-to-one. It's absolutely essential. We need the one-to-one work. But there's other people coming up now, younger people, who can do the one-to-one, whereas I can now do the one-to-few or the one-to-many, write the books, do the videos. And my next step will be getting back into doing live events. Because back in the late 90s, I used to do live events all the time. And then with children and stepchildren and practice and books, it's like you can't keep adding things in without dropping something off. Sometimes it's your sanity. So it's like I just made that decision to stop seeing patients and start getting back into the live events. Because even here, this is great. It's like we're just seeing each other, just like like we're in the same room. And yet there's still something magical that happens in a live event when you are in the same room. Like with your summit that's coming up, it's like for people to come along and be in a shared space like that with like-minded people, there's something magical happens that's beyond education. It's beyond learning about the microbiome and Aboriginal agriculture, and it's like, oh, that's wonderful. And you get more on top of that sometimes you don't even know that you're getting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. I know that last year at the summit, many of the students gathered together and, talked about what they were doing and how they were doing it. We have a space for that. We do that in February at graduation. But the summit, I don't know what it does, but it's more information, and then there's a whole lot of ahas. I know recently I went to Joe Dispenza, and he sends you 7 hours of video that you have to watch before you go to his live event. And, yeah, I listened to the 7 hours. I really enjoyed it. But the feeling that I got in that 3-day live event with Joe Dispenza, I cannot express. I did not get it on video. I did not get it listening to him. Even though I listened to probably that 7 hours twice, yeah. I got there and there were 500 people in that room, and I can't tell you even now how it felt. Yeah. But I just know that when I go to a live event, it's like Anthony Robbins. It's like, when we go to a chiropractic event and all of the speakers that are up there, and then we get to play and converse. Yeah, you're right. There is something magical about a live event. And so we do want many of our students to come, because not only will they meet more students, they're going to learn more information, but it's very inspirational seeing, what everybody is doing as well as the speakers. So, Dr. Messenger, what will you be speaking about? Give us a little hint of what you'll be speaking about.
My topic is hormones, because that's my backstory, how to balance your hormones. That's where I've come from the practical and academic information of what the main hormones are. We're not going to go into so much nitty-gritty that you go, we've got enough biochemistry now, thanks. We're going to have enough intellectual academic knowledge that your brain's happy, that your mind's happy, and we're going to introduce that in a way that, okay, what's this got to do with you? How can you use this in your day-to-day life to improve your own health, your own well-being? And if you're in a nutrition practice or a natural therapies practice or a medical practice, any sort of practice, how can you use this information to help your clients, your students, your customers? Because it's knowledge is one thing. If we don't use it, well, what's the point?
Agreed. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that knowledge is very powerful, but if you don't use it, it's useless.
Correct. Yeah.
You've got to put it into action, and that's what we hope.
If you know that red icy poles aren't good for your 4-year-old child or yourself, and then you're having them at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday, well, it's kind of wasted knowledge. And the consequences, for everybody, it's just not worth it. My credo is do what works. It's like it doesn't work to not use your knowledge. It doesn't work to have red icy poles at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday. It does work to eat organic apples. It does work to meditate. It does work to connect with like-minded people.
Well, Joanne, I am so looking forward to hearing you speak. I haven't heard you speak in a long time, but I have read your books and I absolutely love your message. So I know the students will love what you've got to say and get a lot out of your information. The summit is at the end of July, and it's the weekend of the 28th and 29th in Brisbane. So if you want to come along, you don't have to be a student, by the way. We would love other people to come along. But if you're a graduate or a student, to me, this is important. And it's a good time for you to come together with your fellow students and graduates and have a weekend of breakfasts and lunches and morning teas and dinners and afternoon teas, as well as information to feed your brain. Thank you, Joanne. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, Cindy.
Weren't they just amazing? When I was interviewing them, I could have interviewed them for much longer, but I just felt that if I could give you a Snapchat or a snapshot, I should say, we could say it a Snapchat, but a snapshot of what these two will be speaking about. And what I love is why they do what they do, what made them change. I remember listening to Dr. Rodney Ford when he was on a summit, and I remember listening to him and thinking, this man is wise. And I have to tell you, and that Joanne Messenger, I've known for many, many years, as you heard in the interview. But I've just watched her growth as I've watched many of my students and graduates' growth. So we look forward to seeing you at the Functional Nutrition Academy's Summit, which is in Brisbane, July 28th and 29th. The times are between 9 and 5, and it will be at the Queensland University of Technology. And if you'd like to book for this, just go to F for functional, N for nutrition, so fn.academy. Click on events and book in. We're looking forward to seeing not only our students and graduates there, but we're also looking forward to seeing other people who are interested in learning more about their health, their children's health, their families' health, as well as their communities, and helping each of those people as well. Bye for now.
This year, the Wellness Summit returns.
The only lesson is ever going to be your learning. That's it. As long as you're learning, that's your lesson.
When you stand in front of the mirror, the talk, the things that go on between these ears in the morning can also be what sets you up for a day. And if you've beaten yourself up for not being the most extraordinary person that you can be, then start now.
We make it hard for ourselves. We make things difficult for ourselves because we go and apply a whole bunch of stories and a whole bunch of drama and a whole bunch of I'm not good enoughs to the things that occur in our lives. Wake the heck up. Today's a new day, and here's where it can change.
Kim Morrison and Karen Smith feature at the 2018 Wellness Summit. Bigger and better than ever. Tickets on sale Friday, May 4 at thewellnesssummit.com.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.